What's up, guys? Welcome to a new week. We have on deck this week, we have CPI, PPI on Wednesday and Thursday, some bond auctions in there, and then a U of M consumer sentiment on Friday. We even have, so be on the lookout for some added volatility towards the latter half of the week. Nothing on Monday and Tuesday of noteworthy to really watch for. So let's just kind of dive in. We're going to go through the S&P 500. We're going to go through the NASDAQ. We'll go through the dollar, and we'll even do some crude in there at the end to kind of frame that up a little bit. And then I'll finish off by giving you some levels on the ES and on the NASDAQ as well. So take a look at the ES here on the monthly. We have completely filled or backfilled the surge from March. So that's completely filled in now. You can see that wick went all the way down and touched the top of this, touched the top of February. So that's completely filled in now. We had a massive down week last week. Actually, it was a pretty wild week. On Thursday, we had that massive 100-point sell-off, and then Friday we retraced about 70%. You can see that on the daily of the week anyway, or about half of the week's range, I guess. But 70% of that move essentially on Thursday got backfilled right back in. So heavy rejection to the downside here. This uptrend is still somewhat intact on the weekly. You can see that here, but we did test the lower range of that, and now we have on the weekly we've retested the lower range of that. We're opening just on the outside of that, so we're going to see what the week or the month wants to do here, whether we're going to bounce back up through this and surge back up, or we're going to retest this little trend line to the downside here and bounce back to the downside and retest these lows. Let's go to the NASDAQ here. Similar story. We've got this range that we're kind of operating in. So this trend has come up and is now kind of flatlined a little bit. As you can see, it's been a little bit more congested at the top side on the NASDAQ. Still in an uptrend, but you can see the compression in the candles as we move up towards this top now for the last 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 weeks. We've been kind of consolidating in this chop range right here. Same kind of movements though. Last week, a wild down week that operated within that channel. You can see that on the weekly right here. You can see that Thursday movement here. Friday's retraced. So kind of that similar mindset moving into today. Watch that prior day high. And also watch that prior day low. All right, 18,051 half. And then we'll also use the overnight low and overnight high as kind of our barometers for today for that true break to the upside or to the downside. Overnight low. And then the overnight high right here. Okay, you can see those on there for the time being. All right, that's the NQ. Similar pattern up, kind of more of a pronounced flat line at the top side. So I'll be watching for those breaks on the day. Let's go to the dollar and see what we see here. So we got a little bit of an imbalance here that we're almost filling on the month. It's kind of a thin one, but as the dollar moves up, you had that similar, you had an outside week last week. And if you compare, we did not have an outside week on the NASDAQ. We had an outside week on the ES. Okay, so very similar on that front. Close to an outside week on the NASDAQ. But this one, again, we're going to be using the highs and lows of last week on there, or the daily break. But we're going to see whether we're going to, so this little gap on the daily here got filled to the tick. From here to here was filled right here. So we're going to see if we're going to bounce back up here a little bit and then move to the downside. Is kind of what it looks like to me. Even though there's some rejection there, this is a pretty big reversal pattern. that you can see on the daily. So I'd watch for that break of the overnight or the prior day low. Or that prior day high if you see some surging energy to the upside. You can also mark this 103.92 as kind of a target. If we break here, then likely we're going to move down here. But I'll use that overnight low and that overnight high as guide since we're operating within that range from the open. Overnight low. And we'll do the overnight high right here. Okay, so you kind of have that framed up a little bit. Now let's take a peek at crude. Crude is a little bit different of an animal. We've been on this uptrend here on the weekly, but the monthly we've just kind of been sideways, operating within this this channel right here from essentially from 95 to 65, about that $30 range, bouncing back and forth. That's still quite considerable amount of space to move, but we've just kind of, you can just see we've been zigzagging back and forth. And the latest trend that we're on from the beginning of the year, we've been on this little uptrend moving on up, and you can see last week was a pretty explosive week, a pretty powerful up week. And you can see that, and I would probably set that next target level 88.41 is well within range, and then 88.99 or call it 90, the top right here is also within striking distance at this pace moving up. So we'll watch for that break of prior week to carry on to the upside. On the daily, we did have a little bit of a gap down to start the week, and we got this doji formation, heavy rejection to the downside. So I would watch again prior day low, prior day high. Once we break that prior day high, which is also that weekly high, and it's likely we're going to move on up, and then I would watch for a break of this low right in here, this overnight low. That would indicate to me that we would be moving to the downside overnight low. Where did I put that? There it is. All right. Okay, so you can see that right there, but it looks awfully bullish to me with a little bit of a pullback here, moving to the upside. So we can dive into the profile on that and find some intricate levels to the inside, which we'll do right now on the ES. We'll be testing out this trend line to the upside here. So let's dive down into a 30-minute candle here. And let's go ahead and add on our weekly profile. Okay, so now we're going to flip our weekly profiles on here. We've got a market profile and a volume profile to kind of compare and contrast those, but we'll overlay that right on our prior levels that we just put on there. So we'll go back through this week, and we're going to mark off the value area highs and lows of last week. Those are going to be price magnets for this week. Value area high from last week. Value area low, same thing as overnight low. That's where we bounced off of overnight. Last week, prior week value area low is right here. And then the POC from last week is right here, 52.49. Where did that go? Right there. Okay, so we've got our value area high, our value area low, our prior week POC. So we can watch for that break. That just confirms this level right here at 52.35, 36-ish area. We'll watch for a break of that low. On the high side here, we'll wait for that prior day high to break, the overnight high as well. is the same thing. This POC just kind of we're just kind of grinding through it at the moment, but this a break of prior day high and a break of this trend line leads us. We'll probably head up to prior week value area high, and then we'll also put the last week's high on there as well. Prior week high, and then the prior week low is the same thing as prior day low. So we'll keep those in mind as well. So that is, let's see if there's anything else that we need to mark off in here. We've got some thin prints kind of right there. We've got some right through here, not really. Don't need to really mark that. If we break below here, we'll start marking off some of these other value areas. Like this one right here, 51.82. We can plug that one on there. If we tend to dip below there, we'll mark this low right here, which also coincides with this POC from that week. So we'll just mark that level as prior week POC, and we'll put that from 1 to 3 weeks ago, just so they're labeled when price gets there. I know what they are. And then we'll mark these lows off here, prior week lows. We'll mark that off as well. Oops. Come on. That's from 1, 2, 3 weeks ago as well. Okay. All right, so that should cover us for today. We do have, I will mark one more thing on here that is relevant. You can see we have this gap from right here to here. Essentially from I know I don't normally mark this kind of thing off, but it's kind of hard not to see. We have this gap from prior day high. I gotta pull this off, the magnet off for just a second. So from prior day high till about prior week value area low, we'll just mark that off as a thin print. I just want to mark that zone because once price breaks there, it's probably going to slip through it pretty quickly and refill. This violent initiation move down from last Thursday. So we'll mark that off as well. Okay. And then lastly, we're going to go to the NQ and we'll do a little bit of the same exercise. But that's going to about do it. You got your levels now to the downside, to the upside. On the NASDAQ, you've got your levels on the S&P, your weekly levels to pay attention to. Throw that TPO back on there. Okay, and there you have it. Those are the weekly levels of interest for the week of April 8th. If you want to learn how to trade the volume profile, be sure to check out my full series on volume profiling at the link below. I cover the very basics to the advanced strategies. We'll see you there.